So before we get started, I want to say that what you're about to see is more about trying to show um, versus to teach. So I'm trying to more to show what indie game dev is like, or at least my indie game dev paradise is like, versus trying to teach you how to do these things. If you were trying to teach yourself, you would just learn by doing more so. Maybe you can pick up a few tricks here and there of how I do things. They might not be necessarily the best ways. So again, this is more sort of like a snapshot of a few hours of my life working on Void Destroyer 2 versus me trying to teach you how to do it. So in case you're lost, confused, or thinking that I should do something in a different way, that's all right. That's okay. Don't worry about that. I hope to convey to you more so the process, the feeling of being a game developer versus the actual trying to teach you how to be one. Hey guys, Paul here, and this is another episode of Game Dev Paradise. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about bug hunt. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to look at an issue reported by a player. And then I'm going to go through the steps that I take to resolve that issue. Now, it's actually possible that this is a non-issue, and but either way, it's almost very similar steps. So let's take a look at the issue. What I like to do is I like to have players post issues on the bug and support forum. That way, when I'm ready to focus on an issue, I have a record of it, including potentially my questions, my responses, other players, things like that. And I can look at it. So here, this is what we're going to work on. Excuse me. Basically this. So this player is reporting that while flying in a fleet, the pirates, the enemies, seem to be focus firing on their ship, regardless of what their pilot running frequent pirate ambushes, and pirates only shoot at me. So basically this is what we're trying to solve, is this player report that pirates are only shooting at me. So this takes a little bit of background to knowing how Void Destroyer 2 works. Basically, in Void Destroyer 2, you can pilot multiple types of different ships, from fighters to massive carriers. And the way that the AI decides who to attack is based on this so-called ship class. So for example, in most cases, a fighter ship class should attack other fighters, and gunships, then corvettes. So basically, it kind of goes down the list. So when looking for targets to attack, the ship will search for other fighters. If there's no fighters in range, it'll look at gunships and then corvettes. This is moddable and sometimes varies. For example, sometimes fighters might look for corvettes, in which case they become bombers. So this is not hard-coded, this is not set in stone, but sometimes in some cases it varies. But usually fighters should attack fighters. So when a player reports that pirates only shoot at me, it sounds like they're ignoring their code for target picking. Normally when a fleet versus fleet situation happens, it should be sort of this nice little distribution of who attacks who to make a nice little dynamic visual. And that's what we're trying to solve. So better stated, we're trying to see if it is in fact a bug before we try to solve it. We always try to do that. So actually what happens is this was posted January 15th, and it is now January 18th, so it's been a few days. And at first I was a little confused about this, and I was working on a mission, so I didn't focus on this right away. But the more I thought about it, kind of sits in the back of my head, and while I'm doing something else, the kind of ideas might pop up, and I basically get the potential area where where there's a bug, and that area would be default commands. Default commands when switching from overworld mode to ship mode. This is what I'm assuming this player is talking about. I could ask more questions. I could ask for a save file, things like that. That also works pretty well. Trying to bug fix. In fact, save files are really, really helpful. And save files in combination of step-by-step instructions from the player to me how to reproduce are just the best. But in this case, I'm pretty sure I know what's going on. So to demonstrate to those of you that might not be familiar with Void Destroyer 2, and so we're on the same page, let's try to load up a save file. Let's see. This might be a decent one. So what we want to do, we want to have a somebody attacking us, our ship. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna fly towards an asteroid field. So this is called overworld mode. What we're doing right now in Void Destroyer 2. This is a quick way of traveling from one spot to another. You can give ships commands, and the AI will also receive commands. See some pirate ships over here next to an asteroid field. Hopefully we'll get at least one of them to try and come after us, so we can test this issue. Yeah, there's a good number of them. All right, so we got one. I'm gonna save this. And call it default command test save so we can reproduce it later on. So as you can see, when the pirate ship got close to us, we're pushed into what I call ship mode, and this pirate is now going after us. There's two pirate ships, and they will engage. They'll start shooting us. We can shoot back, and all sorts of cool game stuff happens. Now in this case, there's only one ship here, so it makes perfect sense that they would both attack me. That's perfectly fine and logical that they would both attack me here. So what we want to do, we want to create a situation where we can reproduce the stated bug. So let's go ahead, let's exit out. So what I'm going to do to better reproduce this, I'm actually going to go in and edit the save file here. Save files in Void Destroyer 2 are just plain text files. This makes it pretty easy to see what the issues are. Just by scanning it, I can read the save files. Also, if a player sends me a save file, sometimes just by looking at it, just by reading it, I can tell what the issue is and fix the bug. But in this case, it's also really good for me to be able just to edit this save file, just to type stuff in, remove things like that, to create a better situation for myself. So what I'm actually going to be doing is, this is my player object right here. I'm going to be adding fleet ships to it. So what I'm going to do is open up a different save file and just copy paste some ship objects here just to make it easier on myself. I'm going to make this a fighter. That's fine. One fighter. I'm going to make myself a corvette just to make it a little easier on myself. So normally those fighters should not automatically attack a corvette. they should instead more likely attack another fighter. Let's do some copying and pasting. Let's just add 2 fighters here. All right. And what I also want to do is I want to look at the attackers that are targeting me. Here they are. Here's this indie pirate. And what I want to do is I also want to make them a fleet. Give them multiple ships here. Just so it's sort of a fleet versus fleet type situation. Now, of course, when editing a save file, I want to be sure that I don't create any bugs myself. So for example, here, I have to make sure that all the ship names are unique. So I'm going to call this Hound 2. I want to make sure that the faction is correct, and so on. So pretty quickly, I can create a situation where I can sort of easily reproduce the bug. So let's take a look at what happens now in Void Destroyer. Let's load up that save file that we just edited. And we got a crash. So that means that I introduced the crash here. And just like I said, I have to make sure names are unique. Crashes aren't a bad thing always. In many cases, when there is a crash, it will tell you that something is wrong. And that can be actually very helpful. There we go. Let's try again. Keep our fingers crossed. And it looks like we're loading this fine. Here's our Apollo, our Corvette. Here's our enemies. There we go. Let's hit time dilation to see what's going on. So what we see here is this hound. This is the enemy hound. It is definitely targeting us. This other hound is targeting this this vulture, which is what we actually want. Let's go ahead. Now sometimes the way that ships respond, let's make these like weaker ships. Let's make them a little weaker. Just sort of modify. Just modify this just to make this a little easier on everybody for me to see the issue. There we go. Let's reload. I'm going to hit time dilation right away so we can see what's going on. Alright, so here's this hound, and the hound is attacking the fighter. Here's this other hound, and it's also attacking a fighter. So seemingly things are working as they should. The ships are attacking other ships and not my Apollo. So according to this player, things should be attacking me here, but they're not. So either the player is wrong, or I'm interpreting things the wrong way, or there's another factor. So let's take a look at what would happen if we're moving. Let's load up the save again. what we're going to do, we're going to give a command for us to go towards this ship. Actually, there's two ships there, aren't there? We actually want, no. Can be a little tricky. All right, that's fine. There we go. All right. Time dilation, and let's take a look at what's happening here. So this hound is definitely attacking this hornet. This other hound is also attacking this hornet. And this hound is attacking me. This hound is also attacking me. So yeah, this might be one of those issues where the bug is hard to see, the bug is hard to reproduce. So unfortunately, the save file is not really all that helpful here. So let's take a look at the code. Let's investigate the code here. All right. So let's take a look at the code. First, we sort of have to rack our brain where in all these files this bug might exist. So we're imagining that this happens when the player enters ship mode. So what we want is jump into this. We actually, from memory, I type in something into the search. This comes up, prepare world factory, which is at the beginning of preparing ship mode. Nothing nearby, that's fine. Nearby ships, let's look at that. So here we generate a list of nearby ships to player. So those hounds, those pirate ships you saw, this is what generates this list. This is the list here. Now, here's where we actually do something with the list. We do setup command for world factory ship reference. This is the command for ship mode. This is what controls it. So let's look in here. This looks at pirate factions here. Actually, no, let's back up. So here's the current command. Let's go in here. And this is actually a virtual function. So I happen to know that pirates, their default command is so you can see there's quite a lot of different commands here. We'll find it soon enough. No. Let's look at a little different way here. Pirate ship attack overworld command. And this actually is this, which is attack object, which is go to object. So what we're looking for is go to object. Oops. Here we go. Go to object, setup, command, world factory ship reference. All right. So what happens is command set target. So normally This is what should happen. So let's kind of back up a little bit. When we get pushed into ship mode, we generate a list of nearby ships to the player, and then we tell it what command to have. So what this preparation does here is we create a ship for ship mode. We prepare it for ship mode. We give it a proper position, orientation, health. We basically mirrored things from overworld mode into ship mode. And here, we do the final pass for targeting, or the second pass as I call it here. So that pass here jumps us into go to object overworld command. And this might be too basic. This might be too basic just for the generic go to objects. What we're going to do, we're going to copy this, and we're going to look at pirate attack ship, and we're going to do this here, copy paste. So we're going to create another virtual function here. So then when this gets called, set up command for world factory ship reference. Then this will actually be called here under attack ship overworld command. So just doing some more copy and paste. We want to, of course, whenever we copy and paste, we want to make sure we're naming things properly. Here we go. So this is what's going to be called when we're issuing this initial command after preparation. So what we want to do is we want to make this more sophisticated for when there's fleets versus fleets. So let's take a look here at the top here. So this is just some error checks to make sure that this ship actually exists. If this is a player controlled ship, we don't want to override player's control, so we ignore that. Here there's another error test. There we go. Now we know this is attack ship, so we don't actually need this. Don't need this either. So here we know this is a ship, so we don't have to worry about this. All right. So this is the default behavior. Or we can call this the last resort. So let's see. This is another error test here. That's good. Now this is good stuff. All right, so what we want to do is we want to look at if there's fleets involved. So fleets are sort of stacking of ships in Void Destroyer 2, where one ship represents a bunch of ships. You just give command to one ship, and the other ships sort of follow along. And then when you get into ship mode, all those ships are sort of independent. The player can give them commands, or if they're enemy fleets, there's multiple ships attacking you. So this is good for a variety of reasons. First of all, because stacking things is great because it lowers performance. Instead of having 10 ships, you have one ship and 9 ships underneath it. Those 9 ships aren't actually doing anything. They're just sort of being carried along. So the logic only happens for one ship. Also, the rendering of the graphics of the ship in overworld mode, it also happens for one ship. Also, for the player, it's easier to control, let's say, 10 fleets of, let's say, 10 ships versus 100 ships. You know, for a player, that's much more efficient, much easier. Fleet code has been kind of added more recently. So this is potentially why I haven't noticed this bug before or issue before. So let's kind of like, that could be a possible explanation why this hasn't been brought to my attention before. Alrighty, so what we want to do is we want to take both fleets, if there are fleets, and properly sort of and evenly distribute who targets who. So there's a few ways to do this. There's a few ways to think about this. What happens is Voyage Destroyer 2 is kind of a complex game in a lot of ways. There's multiple ships, there's inheritances, there's things like that. So there's formations, all kinds of things, and depending who is in formation with who, that depends who's going to attack who's going to inherit orders. So let's just keep it simple. Let's kind of ignore all that for the moment and basically try to just keep it simple. So what we want to do is we want to grab a list of our fleet. Get fleet ships. So you can see this is underlined, so this means something is wrong. So I need grab ships vector, I believe. There we go. So like I said in the other videos, Visual C++, actually Visual Studio helps you quite a lot. So this is a list of our fleet. So this is something that can happen okay wise. This first ship attacks this default ship. That's actually fine. Call it main ship attacking its target. This is actually fine. And then what we want to do is check if there's fleet ships involved. Our fleet target fleet. All right. So now what we have here is we have two containers holding our fleet and another container holding the target fleet. What we want to do is we want to go through all of our fleet. So what this loop does, while our fleet is not empty, that's what this exclamation point means, take one of our fleet ships, erase it from the holder, so that we don't duplicate it, and then loop while these guys exist. So basically, we're going through every single ship in our fleet except for our main ship. Now, if this particular ship is not a combat ship, ignore it. We don't give attack orders to non-combat ships. But now we have a combat ship. We want to do something like this. Get ship reference, command set target, and then a ship from the target fleet. Ship from the target fleet, direct command, false, Q, nope, false, right? So this is what we want to do in the end. We want to take one of our fleet ships, or let's say the pirate attacking whoever, including the player, fleet ships. We want to then issue a set target on one of the ships from the target fleet. Get target for fleet ship. I'm going to call it function target fleet or fleet ship target fleet. So we want to call a new function here. Create a new function doing that. Our fleet ship, these are both ships. There we go. For now, I tell it to return null, just because I want to get rid of that that error. Let's add this here. Get the proper setup on both sides here, the definition of this function. All right, so we have our fleet ship. This is who we want to get a target from, for, and this is the target where we're going to get the target from. All right. Okay. There we go. All right. We can hit compile. Once in a while, we can hit compile just to make sure we don't have any errors. And usually when this happens, I like to turn on YouTube, and depending how long it takes. Okay, so we have an error. Let's take a look at the error here. Command set target. Okay. There we go. All right, so now we're all caught up. Alrighty, we're getting some errors. Let's take a look. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So here we're going to say we're returning a physical object. Sometimes what we do is, what I do is I guess programmers, I return a lower object, I guess we can call it, because this one is known by overworld, but ship isn't. So I just do it that way. Let's recompile. See if we don't have any errors. Another error here. Let's do another physical object. There we go. That should be good. There we go, we compiled successfully. So actually this doesn't do anything because we're just returning null, but it compiles, so we sort of know that we're not going to have a bajillion bugs on our hands. All right, so now we're pretty confident that this is going to work very similarly to something before. Sometimes what I do is I'll type a quick DD when I go someplace else, and then I'll do Control Z to undo, and that'll like sort of fly me over to where I was before. Or if I hit compile, this will return an error, and it'll point me right exactly where I was working on before. So when I'm going, like, because I'm going to go traveling here, going to ship manager, I'm going back to world factory. Here I'm going to copy and paste all of this. I'm going to do my undo button. I'm back here. Getting all these errors, that's okay. What we want to do, we want to grab this target priority list. So this is it, target priority list. Now we got to look up what a target priority list is. Oh, this looks like it's just a vector events. That's cool. So the target priority list, that's what I said. So for some ships, most of them having fighters versus fighters. That sort of thing. Now let's take a look. What we want to do is get rid of this. Oh, okay. Need a little semicolon there, get rid of that bug. Okay, so here what we do is we loop this, but no, we don't need to do this at all. This is just some filtering, looks like. Okay, what we need is yeah, this is just creating another list. Let's take a look. Okay, so this is actually named a little bit funny here. This is good. This is what we need here. Alright, generate enemy ship list. Target type is this first priority list. Physical object is actually going to be this ship. Let's take a look at what this does. Oops. Oh, okay, so this just matches up the ship class, also puts in different error tests, like for example, if it's about to be removed, if it's dying, other things like that. So this is pretty simple, so we don't have to worry about that too much. Blah, blah, blah. Don't have to worry about this. Don't have to worry about this. Find nearest from lists. It's pretty good. All right. So here we're generating 4 of these. 4 nearest. And that's fine. Well, does it really matter? Yeah, let's not even worry about this. All right, so here we have the list. What we're going to do going to return one of these ships at random here. All right, so let's back up and let's take a look here. Actually, let's hit compile first. All right, everything's fine. All right, so here we're getting the target priority list from our ship, and then we're generating. Actually, I want to generate this from here. Yeah, so what we want to do is loop through this. Get ship class equals target type. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're generating a list of ship class, list of matching ship class ships. Just name it a little better. Ship class, target priority ship class. List of matching ship class ships. Alright, so what we're doing is we're looping through all these potential targets, and if the ship class matches, we add it to the list of matching ship class ships. And now, if this is empty, we continue, but if it's not empty, we're going to take a random ship as our target. If it's not empty, let's just do it this way. Simpler. Take a random from this target list of matching ships, return it as our target. That goes into overworld here. I'm sorry. Yeah. Because this is called by overworld, that goes into overworld. And that gets returned into this overworld ship command. And then this fleet ship should have its random target here. And what we're going to actually do is we're actually forgetting one thing here. We're actually forgetting the player. So what we want to do is, we're not forgetting the player, we're forgetting the main ship. Here we're targeting the main ship, but here potentially our fleet could also potentially target that main fleet. So we're going to do this, push back. This as well, because we don't want to ignore the main fleet either. You know, we just want to be fair. You know, random is fair. So what we're doing is potential targets for our fleet. If we name things better, it helps us sort of write better code if we name things better, I think, personally. All right, so this should be good. This should give us a nice random distribution of targets for fleets. Add some comments for ourselves. Who do we make these comments for? Ourselves, so me in the future. Yes. Oh, future. All right. Keep up the good work, buddy. All right. So me in the future is going to read this comment and maybe get a chuckle out of it, hopefully. Or maybe I'll never look at this piece of code again. You never know. All right. So now what we want to do, we want to test this. I'm going to put a bunch of breakpoints here. There's actually probably too many breakpoints. I'm going to create a debug build. While that's building, we're going to take this save file. We're going to toss it into our debug saves. There it is. While we wait for this to compile. Alrighty. So that took a few moments. Kind of cut that out for you guys. So we're running a debug build. The debug build will stop at these portions here. So this will tell us if this is actually working, or if it's totally not working, not being even called. So there's a few ways to sort of test, and my method is kind of the brute force test, I guess, as I call it. I could look through the code and scan everything and make sure these things are going to run. But I tend to just hit run and see if they do run instead. And then at the end, I'll scan the code top to bottom once it's all finished to see if there's any other issues that I can see and maybe run some additional tests. So I try to run sort of like a sloppy test first because the code isn't finished yet. So doing a really precise test might not be all that helpful if the code's going to change. Then afterwards, once the code is more finalized, more stable, etc., more how I like it, then I'll do a little deeper tests. Alrighty, so this is the debug build, so it's going to run a lot slower. It's going to start up slower. Everything's much slower because in the debug build, all these things are being tracked for the developer to be able to look at. I could pause this game right now and see exactly which code is being executed, which is not something that's possible in the release build under normal circumstances. Even loading up save files takes forever. Even this list takes a very long time, even though I do have quite a lot of save files here. All right, let's see what happens. Usually nothing happens. Usually there's a bug or there's something I forgot, just in case you guys are getting all excited, right? All right. All right, this is great. So this stopped in the correct portion. So this is prepare world factory for nearby ships. And this is going to this setup command for world factory ship reference. This is great because this virtual is working. Instead of that go to object setup command, this virtual is working, so that's great. All right. So this is great. Our fleet gets generated properly. 3 ships in our fleet. Potential target for our fleet. That's our target. Yeah. While in debug build, I also just double check the code too. Here we add this other main ship. Now it's 4. Now we're looping through our fleet. Our fleet ship, we should get a target here. Here's the potential. Let's step into that. Let's create another breakpoint here. Excuse me. All right. This is in World Factory. We're generating this this target fleet ship holder. Looks like it's all working well here. Oh, wait a minute. Just one ship is here. So this is a bit of an issue. Just one ship, that means that these other guys don't have references yet. They haven't been created yet um, in this process. So actually what I need to do is I need to go back here and grab this, put this here. So we prepared our fleet ships first, and then we set up the command. Whenever I do these sorts of big, this is actually kind of a big change, the order of something. This might result in other bugs, other crashes, other things like that. So let me take a look at this here. This looks all right. This looks pretty safe of a change. So let's run this again. With this change, this should have a lot more ships in it. So as you can see, there's a bit of downtime doing these tests. Usually what I like to do is I like to listen to YouTube. Otherwise, I kind of get distracted. Like, let's say um, I sort of need this kind of almost radio playing. I kind of never understood it at work why people would listen to the radio. But now when I work from home, I kind of understand why somebody would listen to the radio. Just to have something in the background so it's not totally quiet. Total quiet is actually really distracting. You just need a little bit of sort of background noise that you can kind of tune out. Some noise is actually really distracting. For example, the washing machine, which is actually behind me because I'm in the basement. That really distracts me. Really drives me crazy. I can't have a hard time listening to it and trying to do code. I guess it's kind of funny. All right. So this might be less of a bug hunt than it is sort of improving fleets. Not really sure what I'm going to call the video quite yet. All right. So this was all good. This hasn't changed. But okay, now this is bad because we're not. This is not what we wanted. We wanted this to create more ships. This should have created more ship references. So that hasn't done what we wanted. This definitely should have worked. All right, let me stop recording for a moment and just kind of investigate this. All right, so the issue here is this order is correct, but I actually need to loop it twice. I need a second pass and I need a third pass. There we go. So this should work now. So I needed to loop through all of these before starting to loop through this. So the order is very important. So I'm actually pretty lucky that this happened, that the bug happened. If it didn't happen, I thought everything was working correctly, which sometimes it does based on the order. I could have mistakenly thought that things are going good and that the code works, whereas it doesn't. It didn't, and it would result in sometimes working, sometimes not, which would drive me even crazier. Uh, something that sometimes works is often harder to fix than something that sometimes works, because reproducing it is just very, very important. It's going to be a really, really long video. Hey, just as a sort of an aside, in case you're confused by the stuff I'm doing, no worries. I think it's really, really hard to follow somebody else's code. Um, so hopefully you're hanging in there. Hopefully you're, I guess the intention here is just to kind of show what I go through, versus more of you understanding it, just kind of you getting an idea of what game development is like for me. In this case, working on an issue, versus you like really understanding everything I'm doing. You know, that portion is not as important, because when you're doing something on your own, you'll have a much better understanding of that than I do of it. Just like you don't have as good of understanding of what I'm doing uh, as me, the person doing it, in most cases. Especially when there's like so much history, so much stuff involved, so much stuff going on with like code. And this might be a positive aspect of being the solo programmer, is that because I've written everything here that I'm touching, um, I'm also gonna know where everything is, and I'm gonna understand where to go to look for it. All right, so this is still not working. So this might be actually be all right, because this fleet, let's see, what is this a fleet of? This is the player ship. So the player hasn't been set up yet. Player's fleet hasn't been set up yet. Yeah, that's another problem we have to tackle. So this, prepare fleet ships for ship state initial. Yeah, this gets into all these sorts of timing issues and problems. Um, I might need just like a final loop on all the commands for all the ships. So I might just have to take this and put this somewhere else. Yeah, that's sounding very good to me. So I'm going to cut this out. And actually what I'm going to do is, instead of cutting this out, I'm going to comment this out. Moved to final stage of setup. Just so I know where it moved, in case I'm like, hey, where is this step? I need to add it. But this will remind me not to, that I did this deliberately. So let's take a look. Factory for nearby ships. But I might need this prepared ships holder. Prepared ships holder. Yeah, I need to hold on to this a little bit. Prepared ships holder. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make this gonna do this here. Factory player prepared ships holder. This is actually self-explanatory. We don't need this. Take you out. Clear this out before preparing, because if we're going to have a holder, we want to make sure that we don't accidentally reuse it. All right. This is good. Now, prepare world factory. We want to look at our sequence here. Prepare for ship state initial. Nearby ships. What we want to look at is prepare ship state final. Here we go. Prepare fleet ships. All right, and then what we want to do is this. Now that all ships should be prepared for World Factory, final pass to set up proper commands. Or actually, what we can do is erase it at the same time, just so we're sure that we're not really storing this for a while here. All right, that's good. So this should be good. So now that piece of code that catches this should hold it. So this seemingly simple problem, I thought this was going to take me like 10 minutes, 20 minutes or something. Quite honestly, I didn't think it was going to take me all that long to solve this. This is why I chose it to make a video. But this seemingly simple problem is just becoming more and more complex. I'm changing all this code, all this timing, which could result in crash bugs and things like that. There we go. Could result in crash bugs and player leaving reviews that the game is crashy and things like that. So hopefully maybe, whoever's watching this, you guys have a chance to sort of understand what this sort of entails, where sometimes like one bug or one oversight or one feature could take a day or days, and it could result in a whole lot of other problems. So yeah, and this one is taking a little longer to compile, so I'm going to cut that section out. Alrighty, so let's load up that save again. Come on, there we go. So I'm actually feeling pretty good about this. This piece of code and these updates, it's going to make the game a little bit better, which always makes me happy. It's like these little steps that we take constantly in making things better. I really like that. All right, so here we go. Yeah, so now target fleet has a ship reference, which is what we wanted. All right. Cool. So now target fleet ship holder is size 4. So these pirates are attacking us. We're in this Apollo. And we have a bunch of Hornets in our fleet. The last ship is us, because that's sort of the safety net. So now let's look at this code that we wrote like what, 20 minutes ago. This code is basically just looking at the target priority list. We get it from the ship here. This ship is a what? Private fighter. Hound. Yep. This fighter should like other fighters. If this is equals to this, then push it. Cool. And then if this list is not empty, which it isn't, it has 3 of them, send back a random ship from this list. Actually, I should call this something else. All right, so then we get to here, and then we get to here. And then ship from the target fleet is one of these random ships. Happens to be the first Hornet. And then our fleet ship is told to attack this guy via this set command. And there we go. So this is an improvement to this issue that this player was reporting. This pirates only shoot at me. So the funny thing was, in the beginning, we had a hard time reproducing this because it was technically sort of random and sort of varied. So we had a hard time reproducing, and there's a lot of variables into this. But even though we couldn't really reproduce this issue, we can still improve the code behind it or the code related to it. So potentially we might not have actually solved the issue 100%, but just improving it is a big deal. And it's sort of on the step, you know, just because something's not perfect, it doesn't mean potential ships target. Let's just call it something a little better here. Oh wow, this is a big bug here. Yeah, see, this is a bug. It's grabbing from this random nearest list, which is bad. Should be all self-contained here. That's a good catch here. Yeah, I really should be bug hunting as I'm compiling versus looking at the other stuff here. Alright, list of matching ship classes. Yeah, sometimes when I find a bug, I get super paranoid and I'm like, oh my god, what if there's other bugs? Things like that. It's just becomes a sort of a spiral. Alright, well, let's cut out the compiling and let's pick this up when I'm back in the game so I can show you guys what's going on. Alrighty, we're back in the game. This is the release build, so everything works much faster, much less annoying, and the full screen or nearly full screen makes it a little more pleasant to look at. I've also edited this to give this a lot more fleet ships. So let's take a look here. There's the enemies. So all these guys, none of them should be really targeting my ship here, and that looks good. They're all targeting other fighters. Really, this main ship. This guy switched targets too. So yeah. So this is great. All right. Well, to wrap up, let's have a nice battle. Ooh, getting some lag here. Not sure if it's because of the recording or what. Let's have a nice battle. Let's see what these ships can do against me. Oh, it's Trident. Yeah. Yeah, I'm getting some lag here. Unfortunately, this isn't the greatest probably for recording. My Corvette should be pretty good against these ships. Although my poor Hornets are very likely to be destroyed. Yep. Sorry guys, you guys picked the wrong target. Oh, they're all dead. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this game dev classify game dev paradise. Um, this has been a sort of a bug hunt, which turned into a improvement. We were trying to solve this issue of pirates only shoot at me. Um, that should be more or less solved if the if the pirates see other ships as better targets. Hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. If you stuck till the end, appreciate that. Leave a comment, post some feedback. If you have any questions, let me know. If you have any criticisms, let me know within reason. We can totally discuss whatever you like. If you found yourself lost, don't worry about that. What I'm trying to show you more is how this works versus sort of the general feeling of what indie game dev is versus like trying to teach you something. If you were an indie game developer, or if you are, you would probably just develop these tools on your own or these methods on your own, whatever works for you, which isn't necessarily what works for me. All right, once again, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you later.